When you're in your mid-20s, you really only have three options.
Get married,
Get a master's,
or run a marathon.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm Francis,
And welcome to this week's episode of the Zone 2 podcast,
where we explore all there is to learn about the world of running.
Before we get into it, this is your weekly friendly reminder to like us on Instagram at the Zone 2 or I guess you don't like on Instagram, you follow on Instagram.
You can follow on Instagram.
Okay.
But you can like our posts.
If you follow us, you should like the posts and you should share the posts too, because then more people see them. We really appreciate when people do that.
We also have a newsletter that we release every single Monday at 6:30 in the morning.
Except last Monday because I forgot to write it because I was sick. But I'm better now and it will absolutely be sent out tomorrow morning.
Brian was deathly ill.
It was really bad.
You should listen to last week's episode. He even says that he was sick. So
I didn't even participate in the interview last week because it was not happening. Francis really carried the team last week. I appreciate it.
You can also leave a review on Spotify. That really helps us out. And if you have any questions or comments that you want to add as well, Spotify has a really cool feature where you can comment on individual episodes. We respond to every single comment.
Today, Francis and I are joined by marathoner and runner for the Tracksmith Boston Hares, Liv Barbier. Liv, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So usually Brian and I do this bit before we introduce the guests, but seeing as every single guest we've had on so far has been actively running basically every single day, so we thought we would just include our guests in our weekly debrief. So, Liv, how has your week been?
My week has been great. This is my peak training week for the BA 10K. So I had kind of a chaotic run today. 16-mile long run followed by a 400 at the Battle Road meet. Sporadically.
A 400 that you were not planning to run, is that correct?
No, not planning at all. I finished my 16-mile workout with 3 miles at half marathon pace at the end and then hopped into a 400 relay without planning it, which was kind of insane.
I'm also training for the BA 10K.
Oh my God.
But I am just starting my training because I have taken a week off from my marathon. So it's a very back-to-back race, but I'm just going for fun. I'm going for vibes. I'm not going for any crazy PRs or anything. So
I feel like that's a well-earned break, though. And also, it's pretty short training. I mean, the BA 10K is when? End of the month?
June 22nd.
June 22nd? So, yeah.
I knew it was going to be a fast turnaround. I just knew
that
it was a fun...
You're basically trained, Francis.
Well...
Just do some strides inside.
That's true. That's true. And I've been trying to really hit the cross training a little bit to kind of give my body something new going on instead of the same old pounding the pavement.
There you go. Liv, what kind of mileage did you hit this week?
This week, I think it was 57 miles. So nothing too crazy, but my highest mileage week since the Boston Marathon.
Brian and I are just looking at each other. 57 miles is beyond, I think, what we both peaked at for our marathon training.
Yeah, I think for Newport, I peaked at 55 for marathon training, and that's with a 22-mile long run. So
and I peaked at 51.
I'm impressed by 57. Are you running doubles in there?
So I don't have planned doubles, but I sometimes do a double. Like yesterday, it was pouring rain, and I did 7 miles, but I broke it into 2 3.5-mile segments. But I usually just do singles 7 days a week.
Cool. Francis, how's your week? You mentioned taking a week off after the marathon. It's been 2 weeks now. Is the week off still continuing, or did you run a little this week?
I have run a little bit this week. I did about 25 miles, which I think is a good introduction back in, but my total mileage was closer to 50. Had a lot of biking mixed in there, so that's been fun. Went for a bike ride this morning.
Yes, you did. It was awesome.
It was really nice. 6:30 in the morning, got some coffee in Lexington, rode all the way up to Bedford, and then rode all the way back and had breakfast. It was awesome. Had a group of about 6 of us, so Brian was there.
I was there. It was delightful.
How about you, Brian? How was your week?
I had a very difficult week this week, Francis. I had norovirus. I didn't know what it was at the beginning of the week, but I can, looking back, confidently say that's what it was. And I will spare everyone listening the gruesome details. But I attempted a run on Wednesday, just trying to get back into it. And I made it 2 miles. And for the first time ever, I quit a run, which is an experience I don't think I've ever had before.
In your defense... I'll be your advocate right now.
Okay.
In your defense, it was 92 degrees out, 96%.
During the day, I went in the evening.
But it was, it was 89 degrees. It was still really hot, and the humidity was 90%. Yeah. And you had basically not eaten anything for the past 2 days.
I had not.
And had not really drank any water. So
I had drank a lot of water and a lot of Gatorade.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like when you're sick, though, constantly just expelling all those fluids though. So you're just
we don't have to talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. But that was my first experience, I think, quitting a run. And I think it was kind of challenging, like sitting still and feeling like I could feel the fitness leaving my body. And I'm a Garmin guy, and Garmin gives you the like race predictor times. And every day looking at my watch after like having a horrible night's sleep because I was sick, and then seeing my like predicted time going up and being like, oh my God, all this fitness that I gained from a marathon training cycle is just like leaving my body, I feel like was kind of painful. But
You can never trust the Garmin prediction. It's always wrong.
Yeah, and
It's never correct.
Yeah, I feel like the wearables are really hit or miss. And I know that we've been talking about doing a special on smartwatches. And I think an interesting thing to maybe touch on is like the negative aspects of constantly tracking your stats.
I also quit a run when I had norovirus, and it was the only run that I have quit also. So
oh, so we can relate. Yeah, that was
yeah. I was supposed to do an 18-mile long run, and it was like the day after my really bad norovirus day.
goodness.
And I
Yeah.
got 10 miles in, and every mile was like 20 seconds slower than the previous. So the graph was just like
How far did you make it before you called it?
10.
That's
Yeah.
okay. The day, having been through it now, I can say the day after making it 10 miles on a run, I actually cannot imagine. I have never, like, I didn't like take myself to the ER or anything, but I have never been so close to taking myself to the hospital. Like Monday night I actually thought I was dying.
Yeah, it's horrible. And the lack of calories too.
Yeah.
And I was doing it in the winter. So it was like,
Was that this winter?
yeah, it was during Boston training. It was in January, and I was on the Boston course, and I had to call myself an Uber. So I just sat there on the Boston Carriage House Road waiting for my Uber.
Oh.
Did the Uber have anything to say?
They were just a little bit confused. Like,
what?
Yeah, they were like,
Why are you out
aren't
here?
you supposed to finish your run?
Oh my God, if my Uber driver said that, I would be.
I'd be like, I'm going to walk, actually.
Let me out. I'm walking. You're getting 1 star.
That was Wednesday, though. Thursday, I was feeling a little bit better. I was supposed to race the Tracksmith Twilight 5K to get a training baseline. And I really thought, even though I was starting to feel a little better, that it would be a bad idea, especially given the heat. But I did go out and spectate. So I saw a bunch of our friends go and run and brave the heat, and they didn't have to scrape anyone off the pavement, which was super impressive. And I saw some friendly faces out there. I saw Liv out there cheering and getting loud for all the Tracksmith people out there running, and that was a super good time. And then Friday I did some easy miles, and then the long run or the long bike ride this morning, and then I raced in the 4x400 at the Bottle Road track meet this afternoon with Hayden, Devin, and Anthony.
And your combined time was sub 4 minutes.
It was by 0.25 seconds, and I can take no credit for that because I ran a 64-second 400.
that's pretty good. That's pretty fast.
I'm pretty stoked about that. I didn't
Yeah.
have spikes either. I looked around at everyone's feet because there were 6 relay teams in that first heat of the 4x4,
Mhm.
and I was the only runner without spikes on. And I was like, okay, like I think I'm the first. I think I'm the only first time 400 runner that's competing in this. No, that was super fun. I had a challenging week, but I am looking forward to kind of get my mileage up this week again. Yep. So that's our weekly debrief. Liv, we heard about your week a little bit. Let's take a step back. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about your background, who you are, and how you came to be sitting on my back porch.
Yeah. So I'm Liv. I grew up in the Boston area, went to high school around here. My dad is actually Venezuelan, so I lived in Venezuela for 4 years when I was really little, and then my family moved here in like 2000. But yeah, I grew up in the Boston area, grew up doing lots of sports. So basically always doing an activity after school. I danced for like 15 years. I played like pretty competitive tennis. I was like starting singles on my high school tennis team. That was like a big part of my childhood. And then I also competitively ski raced when I was younger. So my family would go up to Vermont every single weekend. We have a house in Quechee. So that was like a huge part of my childhood.
The Quechee Gorge.
Yes, the Quechee Gorge.
Grand
yeah.
Canyon of the East.
Yeah, it's so pretty. It's gorgeous in the summer and in the winter. But yeah, big ski family. So triplet older brothers, all skiing. They were like a year and a half older than me. So it was just skiing all the time, tennis all the time. And then I got into running like in high school just for fun. So there was a little park in my town in Dover called like Noanet Woodlands. And there's a little peak where you can see Boston. So I would go after school. After I played tennis, I would go for like a little jog just to work on my cardio and fitness to like supplement my other sports. So I've always run. And I ran through college just for fun, like 3 miles here and there, never with any structure. Did that in college, but never took it seriously. And then I lived in Vermont for all of COVID after I graduated from college and got a lot more into athletics and like running and skiing. So I was like skiing every day and running every day, but never with any structure. And then I decided to move out west to take my skiing to like another level. So I moved to Colorado, I moved to Denver, like after I had lived in Vermont for that year, and I skied a ton and I had a fully remote sales job. So
Nice.
yeah,
It's the time to ski.
when I say fully remote sales job, I was like in the ski parking lot logging out.
That's the American dream, right?
Yeah, I was sleeping in my car with my laptop and like my phone giving me Wi-Fi.
Something about the fully remote and skiing. I remember when I was ski patrolling at Sunday River, I would ride the lift, like, because I would just like ride with like guys from the singles line all the time, and I'd be on the lift and I always would talk to people on the chairlift, and every once in a while I would start talking to some guy and he wouldn't be answering me, and then I'd realize that he was listening to something in his ears, and then he'd like hang up or a call would end or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, what was that? And he's like, oh, it's just like on a work call. I'm like, you were not on a work call, my friend.
Yeah.
You're on a ski lift.
You were not paying attention.
Yeah, that was kind of the life. It was super fun. I traveled like all around Colorado. I would hike and go on these amazing like weekend trips, and I was hiking like 14ers in the summer and then skiing like a lot in the winter. And then I started posting videos of my skiing on TikTok and Instagram, and some of them started to go kind of viral, which was really fun and interesting because that had never happened before. And I like kind of built this like ski network through the videos that I was posting. So I met a lot of people through that, and I would meet up with skiers and go skiing with them, ski TikTokers, and take videos. And then I got like noticed by a couple of different ski brands. And then I started working with a couple of different brands, and then they would send me to Utah to do like a shoot for their new launch for a product they were launching. So I was living this like ski bum dream life.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was great. And then I was like, Denver's too far from the mountains. I need to be in the mountains to ski even more. So then I moved to Jackson Hole, lived there for 2 years. I actually lived in Victor, Idaho, which is like this tiny little town with one stoplight on the other side of Teton Pass. And I lived there for 2 years and skied just about every day and learned to mountain bike when I was there, did 2 seasons of mountain biking, and did a lot of ski touring. So there's this thing called Teton Pass, which is like the big ski touring spot in Jackson. And I would go up this little mountain called Glory, like just about every day. And it was like 1,800 vertical feet in like less than a mile. And that was like my cardio.
That is
So,
an aggressive.
Yeah, that'll do it, I think.
yeah. But yeah, now I'm back in Boston. So
Very cool. So, Liv, you told us that you have only been running with structure and purpose. I think you used that phrase before. But that being said, you've been a competitive athlete in other spaces for quite a while. You talked about your skiing background. You talked about the time mountain biking.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about your background as a skier and as a mountain biker, and a little bit more about what that looked like?
yeah, totally. I can kind of go through like what a day looked like in Jackson.
Sure.
So I got laid off from my remote sales job.
For performance reasons? They're like, this Liv girl is just not showing up to meetings. Her Wi-Fi says she's in Jackson Hole. She's in a parking lot? Oh, I don't know what's going on.
We don't need to talk about why I got laid off, but I did get laid off.
No, fair.
And then I was working at Lululemon in town, so I had to commute. And I was working like afternoon shifts. So I was working from like 11 to like close time. So I had a little bit of time in the morning. So I would drive up the pass in the winter, and I would do Glory, which is that hill that I was telling you about where you hike up. And then I would ski down, and then I would continue my drive into Jackson, go to the gym for 45 minutes and like lift weights, and then work my shift. And then I had a 30-minute lunch break. And since I was wearing Lululemon clothes, I would just go for a run for like 2 miles, which is what I could get in like 30 minutes. And then I would come back, close up the store, and then do it the next day. And then in the summer, it was basically the same schedule, but the time, instead of the skiing, it was mountain biking. So I'd usually go for like a 2-hour mountain bike ride. And I was dating somebody at the time who was very into mountain biking and like a very competitive, like amazing mountain bike racer. So I was lucky to have like a pretty good coach in that space. So I would say that, and I raced mountain bikes too. So I did a few like cross country races in the summers. I didn't do like insanely well at them, but I think I learned like pretty quickly that it was a dangerous sport. But I would say like definitely doing so much activity in the day. Also living at high elevation, I was like at 6,500 feet. So I would say that my like VO2 max was probably like pretty high, even though I wasn't doing any like intervals or structured workouts, but maybe just from the volume.
So you talk about sort of having a very high base fitness just from your day-to-day activities. Do you think that played a role in your transition to running, or at least maybe help make it a little bit easier?
Yeah, absolutely. So like when I say I started training with purpose in October, it was like October 2023, end of October 2023. So it's just over a year and a half now, but like I definitely started with like a high baseline from those other sports.
You carried a pretty high base fitness going into running with skiing and mountain biking. Obviously, skiing is not the same cardio-wise as biking or running, but what would you say is like the biggest difference between biking and running in terms of like the muscle fitness?
I would actually say that skiing, the type of skiing that I was doing, would be more similar to running than the mountain biking, because I was doing a lot of touring, which is basically uphill skiing with like skins on, or boot packing, where you put your skis on your back and you climb up the mountain. So you have like a sustained high heart rate. Whereas mountain biking, you're kind of like going up and down. So your heart rate is a little bit more like variable. I forgot the question. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say the difference in fitness between like a mountain biker versus a runner. But also, I guess I was thinking just predominantly downhill skiing.
Something we were talking about earlier at the meet is too, when you're on a bike, you're using a machine. So in order to get, and I think we had talked about this too, Francis, in order to get your heart rate up and sustained up too on a bike, you have to be doing so much power output and pedaling hard for a very long time in order to like get your heart rate up and kind of keep it up. And especially when you're mountain biking, you have up and down, you have time where you're coasting and you can get your heart rate back down. And as opposed to when you're running, I feel like it's way easier to get your heart rate kind of up when you're running.
Yeah, I think there's no like cardio like running with how you can keep it so consistent and track your fitness and like your pace. I definitely was running too. I was probably doing like 10 to 15 miles a week in addition to skiing and biking, just like at the gym before like lifting as a warm up, or like during my lunch break when I was working too.
At this point, would you consider yourself a runner above everything else?
Yeah, right now I'm definitely number one is running.
So, Liv, what led you to make that transition? I want to hear why you decided to kind of focus on the running side of things. And I also want to hear a little bit more about how your fitness from those activities then translated into your time as a runner now.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but I had a pretty bad mountain biking accident my first season mountain biking in Jackson Hole. So the first year that I was there, I was on a weekend trip in Big Sky, Montana, which is a few hours north of Victor, where I was living. And I went over the bars. I braked on gravel with both of my brakes, which you aren't supposed to do. And I went over the bars and dislocated both my shoulders at the same time. And luckily I was wearing a full face helmet, so my like head kind of hit the ground, but my teeth didn't get all messed up because I had a full face on. And so I got like really bad whiplash, and then I had both my shoulders out of the sockets. And I had actually already had surgery on my left shoulder a few years prior from a cliff jumping accident.
We're laughing through the pain.
Jeez. Laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah, that one was in a foreign country, so that one was not very fun to go through the medical system in a foreign country. But
That could be difficult to navigate, I'm sure.
yeah, but yeah, it was not a good accident, and I had to go to the ER I actually managed to get the left one back in myself because it's popped out a few times before, but then the right one, I had to go to the ER and have them like do the whole morphine thing and relax the muscles and then get it back in. And then I got an MRI, and basically they were like, everything that you repaired in your left shoulder retore, and then everything in your right shoulder is like torn. Like I tore my labrum, my rotator cuff, and my bicep.
Oh my God.
Labrum in like both directions. So it was like so loose. I tried to go for a hike the day after because I just need to move my body. So I tried to go for a hike and it kept like slipping out of the socket while I was hiking. I had it in a sling. And then I went to the like medical center in Jackson Hole and got like an MRI. And they said that I needed urgently to have the surgery or else it would just keep like sliding out. So I had the surgery and
On both shoulders.
no, so they said the right one was the priority. So I did the
Okay.
right one and I haven't actually gotten the left one repaired because
Okay.
the left one feels a little bit better. It's not as like,
Okay.
it's not as bad as the right one. So maybe one day I'll have to get the left one fixed. But for now, I don't really need arms to run. But yeah, I got the right one fixed and it was pretty traumatic. They like took my bicep and like cut it and reattached it in my armpit. And then I got like arthroscopic on the top for rotator cuff and labrum. But that was kind of tough. Like recently having moved to a mountain town with like my whole life and like my whole world revolving around these like mountain sports. And then I was basically like not mobile and couldn't really do those sports. So it was not like the best time for me because like there's not much to do in Victor, Idaho other than like ski, mountain bike, or run. So I managed to live there for like a full year after that and like got back into biking, but like was always really scared on my bike and like got back into skiing and I was skiing for these brands and I was like posting content for them, but I felt like I wasn't skiing like at the same level that like I had been skiing at before. And then I was working at Lululemon and driving this mountain pass to work and like having these really late nights. And then every time I would ski, I was like really anxious and scared that I was going to fall and like re-injure my shoulder repair. So, and I also was like in this relationship and then I like ended that relationship and decided to quit my job and like move back home. And I think that's just like something that happens to people in their 20s is like they have realizations that maybe they can like make a change. And that's what's great about being young and like being an adult is you can like do whatever you want, right? Like no one's telling you what you can and cannot do.
Realizations that you can run a marathon
Yeah.
or get a master's
Yeah, exactly.
or get married.
It's interesting hearing you talk about that feeling of like kind of feeling just scared doing these activities
Yeah.
that had become such a big part of your life. And I mean, essentially you're at the point with these activities too where they're becoming your livelihood. I mean, you have the
Yeah.
social media following, you're doing work with these brands, like you're essentially doing this stuff for work and it's such a big part of your life, and then feeling like you can't do that to the same level has to feel like there's just like a big hole there.
Yeah, there was a lot of fear and I haven't really like talked about it a lot, but like there was a lot of self-doubt like, oh, am I still a good skier because I'm not skiing at the same level that I was skiing before, which is just not the case because I look back and I was still skiing just fine. Maybe I wasn't like taking the same risks, but like with mountain biking, I tried to race that like following summer and I was always just like scared and a little bit on edge and felt like unstable. And then I just had this realization that like maybe I should try to like pursue a corporate career and like move back to a city and like try something different. Felt like a little bit isolated there. And I had always had this like vision in the back of my head of being like an endurance athlete. And I've always watched like YouTube videos of like Nick Fair and Courtney DeWalter and these like incredible endurance runner.
Goggins.
Yeah, David Goggins. No, I'm a huge fan. I've always watched YouTube videos and like obviously TikTok is something that I'm into. So my For You page kind of turned into running stuff because I stopped like watching as much of the mountain biking things because it just wasn't something that I was interested in anymore. And I had this dream of running a marathon and qualifying for Boston. And I was kind of thought in the back of my head, like, okay, I have this goal of like moving to Boston, getting a corporate job, being fully independent, like left my relationship, was like kind of changed my life, like moved across the country and like wanted to have some structure. So the marathon was like the structure that kind of put all the pieces together. So my goal was to train for a marathon and qualify for Boston in the spring. So I moved in October.
Wow. So that's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So you've had really not that much time, but you've built up so much momentum in that short time. Has the running community in Boston played a part in that at all?
Oh my gosh, huge part. Yeah. So when I first started training in October, I built like a training plan using ChatGPT, and I was living in the suburbs actually in the house that I like grew up in. And I told you this before, I like went online and looked for different run clubs in Boston, and I went to the Brighton Bangers, and then I went to Heartbreak, and then I discovered Tracksmith through like a mutual friend from high school. And Tracksmith kind of, I don't know, took me under their wing. Like everybody was super friendly. I went to a long run. And it was right before Boston because I was doing Newport. So everybody was doing their Boston cycle and I was doing my Newport cycle, and I did this long run. And I remember it was like a 13-mile like tempo run for me, which was my biggest workout ever. And at the time, my like tempo pace was like 7:30, and I joined the 7:30 group, and they were so friendly, and they like hyped me up, and I was telling them I was going to run my first marathon, and I got like a bunch of phone numbers from like these different girls who invited me to go running with them, and I just yeah, it has been such an incredible like community. And like obviously moving to Brookline, I've been able to go to Tracksmith like 2 to 3 times a week now, usually 2 times a week. I'll go on Sunday and Wednesday, and I've built like a huge community and like very good friends and training partners through that.
And so you mentioned qualifying for Boston. So you qualified for Boston at Newport?
I did, yeah. So Newport was 6 months after my move. So I moved in October and Newport was in April.
So I ran the Newport Marathon. It was a difficult marathon course. What did you think? I'm impressed that you could BQ on that course, especially with the debut marathon.
Yeah, I had obviously never run a marathon before, so I didn't really have any expectations for what was hard or what was easy. And I also didn't really know where my fitness was at. I hired a coach towards the end of my training, and he gave me like a goal time. So I think my goal time was a little bit slower than where my fitness was. So I actually never like hit a wall, and I negative split the whole thing.
Wow.
And I ran the last mile like at what my current marathon pace is. So for me, it wasn't super hard. It was just super fun. And I ran a 3:10. So I was blown away, qualified for Boston. And yeah, it was kind of amazing.
That is crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you also have a strong social media following. You mentioned your influence on TikTok. So I know that your content initially was kind of geared towards skier and that skier audience. And now that you've made this transition to running, a lot of your content has made a transition towards that. So I'm curious how your following has an influence on your personal goals or your motivation.
Yeah. Well, I try to make my videos like a combination of like training strategy, motivation, life story, and then just like fun-hearted, funny TikToks about random funny things. And I think a lot of my followers like the authenticity that I kind of put out there. So a lot of followers are people who are new to running or like really competitive. Like I have really competitive runners who also follow me. So it's like a whole range of different styles of people. But yeah, I try to use my content to just like motivate other people to set high goals and like believe in themselves, because I think running is like super mental. And like I did kind of come into running pretty quickly, but that's from training properly. Like I really studied like how to train properly, and I like to share that message like on my TikTok. And I think that's what's got me a bit of a following, is that I share like this is how I trained to do XYZ, and I'm pretty blunt and like honest about it. And I think people like appreciate the like bluntness in some of the videos.
Just out of curiosity, what do you think about your content really resonates with people? Because there's a lot of people out there who post running content, whether it's motivational, whether it's fun-hearted, whether it's training stuff, and sometimes it just never takes off. What do you think it is about your social media that, you know, people saw and they really latched onto?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first, I think it's consistency, right? Like I try to post like pretty consistently. I could do a lot better at that. Like I want to start posting every day, but I think it's just being like brutally honest and blunt about training and like motivation and like mental strategies. I think that's like a lot of my videos that go most viral are the ones where I talk about like how I use my mind to like push through pain. And I put this video up from the Boston Marathon about like the 40% rule, which is a David Goggins rule where basically when you think your body is like completely done in a marathon, you actually have 60% left. And I mean, I don't know if that's actually like scientifically accurate, but people really latched onto that, like these ideas of, okay, being like a little bit delusional and like motivated to push your body further than you would previously think that you could push it. Because that's like definitely how I've been able to like get faster in running, is like it's a lot of mental strategies. So yeah, I think talking about those mental strategies has been a big part of it.
I feel like too, you say that, you know, maybe there might not be any scientific evidence behind the 40% rule, but I also know that like there's definitely stories of people doing what would be considered like superhuman things, like a mother lifting a car off of like her child or something like that. And so like the human body is capable of so much more than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about competing as an endurance athlete too is you are actively putting yourself in the position to push yourself as far as you physically can. And that's something that I think Francis talked about with Meg last week is when you're running ultras, you are literally pushing your body to the limits of what it is capable of. And that's where you kind of get into that. I mean, people have different words for it or different analogies or different visuals for kind of what that space is like for different people. And I think they probably experience it different ways, but I think shedding light on what that experience is like is something that certainly people can relate to, someone who's ran a marathon, and certainly people want to hear about if they're interested in it and they want to learn more.
Yeah.
I also wonder too, I had this thought earlier when you were talking about your TikTok or when you were talking about your For You page and how it just sort of became curated. I wondered, like, as soon as you like a video on Instagram, TikTok, you all of a sudden start getting that content. And I wonder to what extent do those algorithms actually contribute to people getting into a sport? Because people tend to do what other people like, the herd mentality, right? So if you all of a sudden keep getting all of these videos of people running, you're going to think that it's much more common. I mean, obviously running's having a huge boom, but you're going to think that literally everyone on Instagram is running. And so you're more likely to try it. So I wonder too if like...
We also look at why running is having the big boom. It's like it is getting so much attention and there's so many spotlights on social media kind of putting energy and time and resources into this. I mean, there's so many up and coming influencers and brands doing exceptional work with really strong social media presences. And that really goes a long way, I think, for just showing people who aren't into the sport, like, whoa, this is an option. This is super accessible. It's right out your door and anyone can do it.
Yeah, anyone can do it. And just to add on to that, like, I think running is probably booming so much because there's so many sports out there that are trendy, like skiing or biking. Pickleball. But a lot of these other sports take some like innate talent that you've grown like as a child. For example, skiing, it's really hard to go out and try to be a pro skier if you didn't start skiing when you were 2 or 3. Running is this thing that's built into like our biology. And I think you can become really, really good at it as an adult if you train properly. And I really do think that anyone can get to a very high level in running if they put in the time and the effort and the proper recovery and the proper training. And that's what's really addicting and cool about it is it's so accessible, but it's also so accessible to get to like a sub-elite level if you just believe that you can, because it's not like you needed to learn how to run when you were a kid. Everybody knows how to run.
It's amazing too because there are so many accessible goals. I think you look at everybody who's running at a different level. You could be a couch to 5K person and your goal is to run a 5K. Like that is your BQ. That is your marathon, is getting off the couch and running that 5K. And then you talk about BQing. You talk about what's beyond BQing, and we can get there in a little bit. But I think that's kind of what's so cool about it is each person can have their own goal and it's so significant to them, but there is that opportunity to reach for that goal, hit that goal. What's next? Keep going. Like you're never done running.
Yeah. And also, like, it's so satisfying to see yourself improving, whether it's going from like a 10-minute mile to a 9-minute mile or a 5-minute mile to a 4-minute mile, like wherever that is, like it's so satisfying to see that improvement. And I think as adults, there's not like a lot of things that give you that kind of, you know, good feeling about, you know, you're bettering yourself, you're getting more fit. But then you can also see it like on your Garmin watch, like got a PR today. That feels so good.
Or your Garmin yelling at you that you're losing fitness.
Yeah.
I have norovirus, Garmin, please.
Don't trust your Garmin. It lies to you.
It's a tool. It's not your owner.
Yeah. Well, now there's the Strava predictions too.
Which are also, they're better.
They're a little off, I think.
You think?
Yeah, they're a little off.
I think they're more accurate than my Coros.
Really?
100%. My Coros is like, you can run a marathon in 2 hours and 47 minutes. I'm like, absolutely not. I cannot do that.
Yes,
actually, you can.
Francis.
Yeah, I think you can.
I think the whole point of what Liv is saying is you can.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I can run
Yes, you can.
47.
Never
That would
say
be cool.
never.
That'd be cool if I did that.
Yeah, anything is possible.
I think you can do it. If you try.
Maybe next year.
I think Coach Kev would be stoked if you ran a 2:47.
Maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Why not Philly? You're running a marathon in 6 months.
My goal for Philly is to break 3.
Okay.
But what if you made your goal to run a 2:47?
And then if I don't reach that, then I'm still breaking 3.
Well, that's why
Exactly.
people have ABC goals. Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point. What did Pitbull say? Shoot for the stars, and even if you fall short, you're on top of the world, baby.
Yeah.
So
like that.
did he say that?
I don't know. It was
I don't know if he said that.
it was on someone's locker in 8th grade on a laminated sheet of paper.
So, Liv, let's talk real quick about Boston. We've
Okay.
had Boston runners on before. Francis and I both spectated. It is such an enormous cultural event for this city. So many people turn out to spectate. It means so much for people who work so long to be able to run Boston. What did it mean to run the Boston Marathon, especially growing up in this area? And tell us about the race.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of words that can describe the Boston Marathon. It was just amazing. My mom lives in Italy for part of the year, and she was in Italy. She flew in to watch me. Brother flew in from North Carolina with his wife to watch me. My other brothers were watching. I had a bunch of friends on the sidelines. I've never had so much support in any like sporting event of any of the sports that I've done. So just having like that community, family, and then also just training on the Boston course with my friends from Tracksmith who are also running Boston, going up and down the carriage road, and then being able to race on the same place where I trained with my friends who I trained with was really cool because my other 2 marathons were not really like that. So
Your friends who you trained with and about 500,000 spectators out to scream for you.
Yes, and the spectators. I gave a lot of high fives and probably added on a lot of distance from the zigzags for the high fives, but it was very worth it. Yeah.
Do you ever get tired of all the cowbell?
Well, I was actually blasting music in my AirPods.
Okay.
Nice.
And then they died.
And so you're like, I have to listen to these people.
Yeah, but they died at the most inconvenient time. They died at like mile 20.
That's when you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh.
I did
That's
my marathon completely unplugged.
Wow. You're built different.
Well, I wasn't planning on doing that, but then I thought about it, and it was logistically easier for me to just not have my phone with me. So I reserved my running belt for all my gels instead.
I think I'll do that next marathon.
It was fun. I had a great time.
we talked about it. Like, there's like a ton of people running Philly. Like, I feel like we're gonna have a lot of friends there.
Yeah.
I feel like I would rather find someone to like party pace at least a little bit of it, or like go a little bit slower just to like have friends they're running and like enjoy the. We don't need to.
There's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's circle back then. So we were talking about your TikTok before. A lot of your content on social media emphasizes motivation and self-belief, and that brings us to something that Francis and I are both super curious about. So you told us that you want to qualify for the 2028 Olympic trials. I don't know if this is something we want to be like putting out there. I think that is a super bold and exciting goal. I'm curious what inspired it and what are some of the milestones that you're looking to hit along the way, both big and small.
Yeah. So you can definitely put that out there because something that I put on my TikTok is I'm not afraid to say my goals because I'm not afraid to fail because failure is just inevitable. So I didn't hit my goal in my last 2 marathons, but I was pretty vocal about what my goals were. I wanted to break 250 at CIM and at Boston, and I didn't do that at either of them, but that's not a bad thing. It's like actually a good thing because I think setting goals that are really high is just part of like the fun of trying to get better at something. So yeah, I definitely would love to try to qualify for the Olympic trials. They just came out with the qualification time. For women, it's 2:37, which is the same as it was in 2024. It's definitely like a huge stretch goal. My PR right now is 2:53. So it would be really, really hard. But that's just going back to like my mindset, like why not try? Even if I'm kind of close or even far off, I'll probably run faster than I would if I didn't try. So that's why I'm doing it. And yeah.
So that's 1,132 days out to the 2028. I think that's the Olympics, not necessarily the Olympic trials. But what are your goals in the meantime?
Yeah. I definitely want to ski a lot this winter. So I'm going to try to do a multi-sport thing. So it might be a little bit more difficult with that, but I don't want to give up on my skiing because that's a big part of my life. But for example, I'm trying to run 2:45 at Indy this fall in November and then try to get down into the lower trees in the following marathon and then maybe crack into the trees. It's very, very out of reach, but it's a fun challenge. And then I'd like to run in the 1:10.5 leading into Indy. I haven't actually signed up for a half because I'm looking for a flat, fast half in October. There's a few options like in the Midwest. So if anybody has any ideas. And yeah, I'm hoping to run like 1:18 or so, which would translate to like 2x. But Yeah, I mean, these goals are super, super high, but I just like get really, really into my hobbies and I get really addicted to my goals. It's super fun for me. So I want to challenge myself and try to reach like the highest level that I can in the sport while I'm young and fit. And if I fail, whatever, it'll be super fun and I'll meet a lot of cool people along the way. If I hit it, that would be amazing. But it's just a fun challenge. Yeah, like I said, it's definitely very out of reach, but it's worth a shot.
What do people say when you tell them that you are aiming to qualify for the Olympic trials?
It depends who the person is. So I have, running friends and then non-running friends and then skiing friends. And I think my running friends kind of understand why I have that as a goal because basically like in the sub-elite level of running, that's the Olympics for a runner is getting the OTQ. So I think a lot of my running friends can understand that dream. My non-running friends think I'm crazy. It's definitely a big time commitment. Like my mileage is not super high. I'm a pretty new runner and building mileage as a runner is really like strategic. You don't want to burn yourself out too early. It's like something that you have to build over years. Obviously 2028 we have like a little bit of time, but I want to do it like very strategically. And like I said before, I want to ski too. So, yeah, people definitely think it's crazy, but I don't really care.
I also think there might be an element of non-runners not understanding what that means and a little bit what we were talking about with the sport and how progress, maybe while it's not necessarily linear, there are so many opportunities to push yourself and get further and how there are these stepping stones along the way. So even saying that now, well, it might sound like a ridiculous goal, and I don't think it does, but that it could sound like a ridiculous goal to someone. But I think someone who maybe doesn't run doesn't understand necessarily how, I'm trying to think of how to say this.
Well, I was going to say, I was thinking, like, it's not like you're going to qualify for the Olympic trials tomorrow.
No.
Like,
Sure.
like, no
I
one
have
can just
years.
go out and do
Yeah.
that. Like, this is something that you are intentionally going out and doing. It's not just like
Yeah.
you're waking up one day, putting on your sneakers and running a 2:37. This is something that
Talking
you're
about
going,
years.
Yeah.
you're going to have
yeah.
almost 3 years.
Yeah. Like I could tell you I'm going to go do heart surgery tomorrow and you'd say, not on me.
But if someone said they were going to be a doctor, it would be much more like, oh, you're going to train, go to school, become a doctor, and then do heart surgery. Like, that
yeah,
makes more sense.
Yeah.
it's something that you have to be really patient about. It takes a lot of time. But like if I looked back a year and a half ago and you told me a year and a half ago that I am going to run a 121 half and a 253 at Boston, I would tell you that's insane.
Mm.
But I think it's kind of like the domino effect. Once you realize that you can improve, anyone can put in the time if they want to. It's like if you want it, you can put in the time and you can train and you can increase your mileage and you can improve. And it might not be linear and it might not be easy, but I really don't think that like just because one person can do this or can't do this, that you can't do that. Like I think you can do anything that you put your mind to. So why not like try? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's a ridiculous goal at all. I think you can do it.
Thanks.
And even if you fall short, just being able to set a goal like that and then recognize these are the actionable steps that I need to take to get from here to there, and taking those steps and putting the work in is, I mean, that's almost the reward in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the journey, as corny as that sounds.
And no, it's so true. Like I remember thinking about that at the end of my marathon training cycle at the start. And I talked about this during my Newport race recap, how it almost didn't feel like the marathon mattered. I mean, obviously it matters, but it didn't feel like it mattered to the same extent that I'd built it up in my mind, because the work and the time and the dedication that you put in already happens by the time you get to the start line. So that's really the, like you said, like it's corny, but like that's the journey, is putting the work in for the training. The race is, as Kate said, the race is a celebration of the training.
Exactly, yeah.
The gift is what you have after the marathon, which is the knowledge that you can do something like that. So it's almost more of an accomplishment of one's brain than it is over body.
Yeah.
Mind over matter. I always say.
You should coin that.
Yeah, I came up with that right now. But so you've been talking about your goals, and you've acknowledged that they're stretch goals. You've acknowledged that some people might call them ridiculous, but that kind of touches on your personal mantra, which is be delusional. Can you explain what that means and how it shows up in your training?
Yeah, so delusional, it's something that I have on my Strava, in my Strava bio. And it's also one of the things that I wrote on my hand for the marathon, which kind of went viral on TikTok. But yeah, when I say delusional, I just mean setting super high goals and not limiting yourself or counting yourself out of anything. And that's not just in running, it's also in life. Again, very corny. I've definitely had a lot of hard things happen in my life, and like I've had these big moves like across the country, lost jobs, quit jobs, like had a really bad breakup. I think everyone has these experiences. It's just part of being like a human, but you can't like limit yourself. There's lots of people who you might run with who are going to tell you that you can run XYZ, or your silly Garmin watch is going to tell you that you can or can't run a certain time, or somebody might tell you that you like can't apply to a job because you're not qualified. It goes for everything in life, but you just gotta, set the bar really high and go after it.
I guess my counter to that, not counter, but I'll play devil's advocate for a second. Specifically when it comes to running, what would you say to people who are afraid of the pain? Because running is not always comfortable, especially during our marathon. It's certainly not comfortable. And knowing that it's going to feel that way, I feel like turns a lot of people off to running in general. What would you say to people who are apprehensive?
Yeah, you gotta embrace the discomfort. There's this silly YouTube channel that I used to follow called Yes Theory. I don't know if you've heard of it, but their motto was seek discomfort. And I used to watch that like in college. I think they came out like maybe when I was late high school. But I always loved that idea, like seek discomfort, do things that are uncomfortable, because if you just stay comfortable all the time, you're never going to really grow. So yeah, a marathon does hurt in the last 10K. That's inevitable if you're doing it right, if you're racing to your full potential. But that discomfort is just like part of the journey, and yeah, it helps you grow, and it feels so insanely cool when you cross the finish line and you know that you were able to push yourself through that pain. Yeah, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's very well said.
Yeah,
Thanks.
not sugarcoating it at all. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Francis, to add on to that, I would say too, so I raced a 4x4 today. If you've listened to the podcast, I'm not a runner by trade. I'm certainly not a 400 runner. That is my first time ever racing a 400 meter on a track. It was very difficult, hurt a lot. By the end of it, I don't even remember what the first words out of my mouth were after. It was probably similar to what I said after the marathon, which is, oh my God, I don't know why anyone would choose to do this, which is a perfectly valid takeaway after doing something incredibly difficult. But I can tell you now, and this is like a couple hours afterwards, that's not what I remember and that's not what I take away. And I think it's interesting what our minds and what our bodies remember about an experience is it can be so physically and so mentally challenging and so painful. But when you look back at it, when you look back at your marathon, what do you remember? Obviously, it's hard. I look back at Newport and I remember, oh my God, like I remember trudging for miles and it being so difficult, but I don't internally remember that pain. I remember seeing my friends at the finish line and that smile and that amazing sense of accomplishment that I felt after a long and challenging training cycle. I remember the feeling of having a goal and working towards it. And that's something that you can't, like, no amount of pain doing the activity is going to take away from you. I don't think. I'm sure there's a certain extent where maybe it does, but I haven't found it. Liv, I think your perspective is super refreshing and it's interesting to hear. And I also think it can be scary to set goals, especially when those goals seem so far off and so unattainable. And I feel super inspired just hearing you talk about this goal that even you're acknowledging, like it's delusional. It's so far away. It's so hard to attain, but there are these steps that you can take to get there along the way. And you have the physical capability and the mental capability to do it. I think it's super inspiring. I feel like I want to go set goals right now. Should we talk about shoes?
I think that's a fantastic idea. So we love talking about shoes. We love talking about gear. I know that when it comes to any sport, you can go down a gear rabbit hole. And that's one of the things that I feel like running is really fun, because if you compare sports, it's definitely one of the, I mean, you can spend a lot of money in running, but it's definitely one of the less expensive sports. What are you running in right now?
I race in the ASICS Metaspeed Sky, and then I train in the Saucony Triumph 22, Brooks Ghost, Saucony Ride 17, and then also a pair of Tracksmith trainers that I got because I'm on their like support team, so they gave me some shoes, which is really nice. But yeah, I kind of try a bunch of different trainers, but I've always been racing in the ASICS Metaspeed Sky.
How do you like them?
I love them. I think they're fantastic. Yeah. I did my first marathon in the Alpha Fly, the Proto 2, and it was super bouncy and fun, but I got like weird cramps on the bottom of my feet. I was introduced to the ASICS shoe and I just kind of haven't looked back. I'd love to try some other shoes. Like I'd love to try the cool new Puma super shoe that everyone's talking about. But yeah, it's worked out great. I just go through a lot of pairs because I try to race on them when they're fresh. So I hit 100 miles of race and I race a lot. I do like a lot of races leading into my marathons. So they go dead pretty quick.
I was telling Brian how I have the same issue right now with my Adidas, which is they're still usable shoes, but the pop isn't there anymore. And I've only done 2 races on them,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
It's a lot of money to spend on a
$300 pair of shoes.
single use.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
single use.
I would argue that running is more expensive than skiing. Because
Yeah.
skiing I wasn't doing like free ride competitions, so I wasn't paying entry fees and I was getting my gear for free.
Yeah, signing up for traveling for marathons, signing up for marathons, buying
Yeah.
all the gear, buying gels,
Gels.
Morton's,
Yeah.
$3 a pop.
the expensive stuff.
My
Plus
grocery
you
bill.
gotta look good.
Yeah,
While you
that's
run it,
very
so you gotta
important.
buy all the gear.
You
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
get the sunglasses. I
Yeah.
saw you were wearing those for Boston.
Yes.
That was cool.
I-
Do you think like having a coordinated outfit improves your performance?
100%. Yeah.
Mm.
My outfit for Boston was I spent so much time trying to figure out a cool outfit for Boston. Too much time, but I wanted it to match my meta speeds. So I dug through the internet to try to find a bright orange running outfit. And I found this Under Armour outfit. And it also kind of went viral on TikTok. People really liked the outfit.
There you
So
go.
yeah.
I feel like look good, run fast. Plus, it's a mental thing too. If you look good, you feel good, you're gonna do better.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Sparkles on the
Yeah,
face.
I was gonna ask about the
Yeah.
glitter too. Yeah, tell us about the glitter.
Yeah, I started doing the glitter at CIM, or no, before CIM, I started doing the glitter. And yeah, I just put a ton of glitter all over my face. I usually put it on my cheeks and I match the color to my outfit and then do my makeup and try to just look good, feel good, run fast.
So you weren't planning to run the 4x4 today, meaning you didn't have time to do a coordinated outfit and get your glitter on. Do you think that impacted your performance?
Yeah, don't tell my coach. I hope he's not listening to this. I did hop into the 4x400. I borrowed my friend's spikes. Yeah, no glitter. Didn't run as fast as I wanted to.
You
but
looked like you were having fun.
yeah, it was super fun.
What's like your non-negotiable piece of gear that you cannot run or I guess live without?
Yeah, I do really need to have my watch on when I'm running. I like to look at my pace. I don't really look at heart rate. I'm more like effort based, but a true zone 2 run, I try to make sure that I'm running like about 2 minutes slower than my marathon pace or like the marathon pace that I want to be running. So I try to like slow myself down because if I don't have a watch, I'll run too fast. And I've learned over the years in all my sports that, pushing yourself too hard can actually, impact your performance negatively. So yeah, I always try to make sure that I'm going like a little bit slow and easy on my zone 2 runs.
Yeah, I feel like right now I'm for the BA 10K, my training block, my focus is taking my zone 2 runs, focusing more on overall effort, and then for my tempo runs, focusing more on pace.
It's cool that too, like Liv, I know you have a Garmin. I think it's super cool in my Garmin app or on the watch how you can change the screen layout for different activities and how you can have different layout screens. And that's something I'm looking forward to playing with a little bit more training for Philly is what data do I want to see? I feel like we should start sharing, like when we do like the guest introductions on Instagram, I think it would be cool to share like, what's your watch setting? Like, what does it look like when you go for a run? Because everyone has theirs arranged differently. And I feel like that's a very personal decision, especially when people customize it.
Yeah.
But no, heart rate or pace.
I just have pace and then distance and time, the super basic screen. But when I do workouts, I pre-download my workout into the app. I do it before and then it beeps and counts down and then I have it so I don't have to think about it and I don't have to split on the track, which has been very helpful in training.
Yours does that, Francis. It yells at you when you go too fast.
Yeah, you can set up like the pace windows and it also shows you which stat you're tracking. So if you're doing, say, an effort-based run and you want to track your percentage of threshold pace, it will show you your heart rate versus if you have a pace-based workout, it will show you your current pace. So it knows sort of what it needs to show you when, which is really helpful. So I think that's all we have time for. But Liv, it's been awesome talking to you and I wish you the best of luck in all of your goals moving forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Liv, this was amazing. Thanks for making the time to come on here. And if you're listening and you're like, wow, this girl kicks ass, I want to learn more about her journey, make sure you give her a follow on TikTok and Instagram, and we'll be tagging her stuff on our Instagram page.
But before we go, Brian, do you have a fun fact for us?
Francis, I'm so glad you asked. So we went for a nice long bike ride this morning, didn't we?
We did.
We love biking. And we love cities that are bike friendly?
Boston, it's more bike antagonist, I would say.
I would say so. I feel like there's a bit of an anti-cyclist campaign, but urban cycling, it's a great way to get around, reduce traffic congestion, and Zurich, Switzerland just recently opened a brand new repurposed, so former car tunnel, now bike tunnel, underneath the main train station in the city. The tunnel is 440 meters long. It connects several districts of the city, designed to improve bike commuting, and it looks super cool too.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's a fun fact. Boston, why don't you do that? They would never.
No.
You literally would
I'd be
never.
like, no.
Thank you for listening to the Zone 2 podcast. You can like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Wednesday at 6:30 a.m.